Morning I found out I was pregnant. My husband was in the garage watching football highlights on his phone, with the volume turned all the way up. I stood in the bathroom doorway for a full minute, holding the test with both hands, listening to the muffled sound of a crowd cheering through the wall. I kept thinking he would feel something, some shift in the air, some reason to come check on me. He didn't. I walked to the garage door and knocked. He glanced up, saw my face, looked back down at his phone. "You okay? I need to show you something." He paused the video. That felt like a gift somehow. That small pause. I held out the test. He looked at it for a long moment, and something moved across his face. Not joy, not panic, just a kind of blankness, like he was reading a receipt he didn't remember asking for. "Huh," he said. Then, are you sure?" "3 tests," I said. "All 3. He nodded slowly, set his phone down on the workbench. "Okay, we'll figure it out." That was it. We'll figure it out. Like I told him the dishwasher was broken. I went back inside and sat at the kitchen table for a long time. Outside, the video started playing again. My name is not important. What matters is that I was 34 years old, 7 years into a marriage I had spent most of that time quietly defending to myself, not to other people. I was too proud for that. But in the small hours of the morning when I couldn't sleep, I would lie in the dark and compile a mental list of reasons why things were fine. He provides. He doesn't drink. He's never raised a hand to me. He's just private. Reserved. That's not a crime. My best friend Lynette had a different word for it. She'd been saying it for years, gently, carefully, in the way that only someone who truly loves you will keep returning to a hard thing. "He's checked out," she told me once, over coffee at her kitchen table. Her daughter was playing in the living room, and we could hear the squeaky sound of some toy being dragged across hardwood. "He's been checked out for a long time, and you cover for him because you're the kind of person who doesn't quit." "That's not a bad quality," I said. "No," she agreed. "But it's not always a good one either." I thought about that conversation a lot during my pregnancy. I thought about it in the OB's office, in the waiting room chairs where I always sat alone because my husband had work things, or a thing with a client, or he was just tired and the parking downtown was a nightmare. You know how it is. I thought about it during the anatomy scan when the technician pointed at the screen and said, "There's your girl." And I cried by myself in a dim room while someone else's husband waited in the hallway for someone else. My mother-in-law called when she found out. She didn't call me. She called him, and then he mentioned it to me that evening while we were eating dinner. "My mum says congratulations," he said. "She didn't call me. She texted you." I checked my phone. There was a message from her, time-stamped 40 minutes after their call. "Congrats," with a small balloon emoji. That was the whole thing. His sister was more forthcoming. She came over the following weekend, stood in our kitchen and told me, without much warmth, that I needed to start thinking about what kind of mother I wanted to be. She said it the way people say things they believe to be helpful when they are actually just looking for a place to put their own anxiety. "I just think," she said, "that some people treat pregnancy like it's a personality. You don't have to make it your whole identity." I was 14 weeks along and still throwing up every morning. I didn't say anything. I went to the sink and refilled my water glass and told myself I was handling it with grace. Lynette, when I told her, used a word I won't repeat here. "She's threatened," Lynette said flatly. "She's the only one with a kid and now she won't be. That's it. That's the whole thing. Don't let her in your head." I tried not to. I really did. The pregnancy was not easy. Not medically. My daughter was healthy, growing right on schedule, kicking me awake at 3 in the morning like she already knew how to make her presence felt. But the isolation was something I hadn't prepared for. My husband traveled for work 2 or 3 times a month, and when he was home, he was still somehow not entirely there. He would sit across the room from me while I told him about my appointments and nod in a way that made me feel like I was a news broadcast he'd seen before. I started keeping a journal, not because I'm a journal person, I'm not, but because I needed somewhere to put the things I couldn't say out loud. I wrote about the night I woke up at 32 weeks with what turned out to be round ligament pain, and lay in the dark for 40 minutes convincing myself not to go to the ER alone rather than wake him. I wrote about the baby shower Lynette threw for me, how my mother-in-law showed up 40 minutes late and spent most of the afternoon in the corner talking to her daughter, and how when I opened their gift, a diaper bag, practical, beige, my mother-in-law said she hoped I wasn't one of those women who expected everyone's lives to stop. I wrote about how my husband read that entry over my shoulder without asking, and then didn't mention it. 3 weeks before my due date, he told me he had a conference in Denver. 4 days. He would be back the Thursday before my due date, he said. Plenty of time. She wasn't coming early, he was sure of it. She might, I said. She won't, he said. First babies are always late. I didn't ask him where he'd read that or who had told him. I just started quietly putting together a plan. Lynette already had a key to my house. She already had the hospital bag in her car trunk from the time she'd visited and insisted on taking it with her, just in case. She had a copy of my birth plan. She'd been to every class with me, every single one, sitting in folding chairs in a church gymnasium, learning things she already knew from her own experience, because she wanted me to have someone there. I'm not going to miss this, she told me, early in the pregnancy. Not for anything. You hear me? You call me any time, any hour, and I will be in my car. I believed her. She was the only person I fully believed. My husband came home from Denver on a Thursday evening. He seemed energized in the way that people get after time away, looser, more talkative at dinner, telling me about a restaurant he'd gone to with colleagues where the steaks were unreal. I sat across from him and ate soup and told myself the feeling in my chest was just heartburn. My daughter dropped 2 weeks earlier and everything felt compressed and low and heavy, and I'd been having what my OB described as practice contractions that were more uncomfortable than they should have been. Friday passed. Saturday morning I woke up feeling strange, not painful, just off, the way the air feels before a storm. I told my husband. He said, could be the soup. By Saturday afternoon, it wasn't the soup. Lynette was there within 22 minutes of my call. I know because I timed it, standing in the hallway with my bag at my feet, and my husband still moving slowly around the kitchen looking for his keys. And I watched the clock and thought, 22 minutes. That's what 22 minutes of love looks like. He drove us to the hospital. I will give him that. He drove us there and he carried my bag to the check-in desk and he sat in the room while I was admitted. Lynette held my hand during the first round of checks. My husband sat in the chair by the window with his phone. I want to be fair. He was there for the first several hours. He brought me ice chips. He watched the contraction monitor with what looked like genuine concentration, or maybe that was the TV behind my head. There was a game on, some college thing, and it was loud in the way that games get in the third quarter when everything matters. I didn't ask him to turn it off. By hour 6, I was deep enough into labor that the room had narrowed to Lynette's voice and the pressure in my back, and the steady, terrible rhythm of it. I heard my husband say something to Lynette about stepping out for food. She said something back. Quiet, I couldn't hear it. The door opened and closed. An hour passed. Then another. At some point I asked for him, and Lynette looked at her phone and said, in the careful voice she uses when she's managing something, I'm sure he's on his way back. He wasn't. My phone was in the bag across the room. Lynette checked it for me during a rest between contractions. She read me the message without expression, the way someone reads a sentence they wish they didn't have to read. It's running long. Be there soon. I asked, what's running long? She was quiet for a moment. His brother-in-law invited him to a game. He texted while you were. She stopped. He said he thought you still had hours. I didn't say anything. Another contraction came and I held Lynette's hand and breathed through it and thought about the word soon and what it means to a person who thinks labor is something happening on a schedule that works for them. My daughter was born at 11:47 that night. Lynette was on my left side and a labor nurse named, I couldn't tell you, I couldn't retain names by then, was on my right. The room was very bright and very loud, and then suddenly, in the way that nothing prepares you for, it was quiet. She was placed on my chest. She smelled like something ancient and specific that I will never be able to describe. She blinked up at me with dark, unfocused eyes, and I said something to her, I don't remember what, and Lynette was crying harder than I was. My husband walked in 43 minutes after she was born. He was carrying gas station flowers, the kind wrapped in plastic with a rubber band around the stems. and he had the look on his face of a person who has decided, on the drive over, exactly what emotional register to perform. "I'm sorry," he said. "The traffic coming back from the arena." I looked at him. I looked at my daughter. I looked back at him. "Okay," I said. I don't know what he expected. Maybe for me to tell him it was fine. Maybe for me to make it easier. I just didn't have anything left in me to give him, and what I did have I was saving. The nurse who had been there from the beginning, a calm, steady woman who had seen everything and was rattled by nothing, came back into the room about an hour after the birth. Lynette had stepped out to call her own family. My husband was in a chair across the room holding our daughter with the careful unfamiliarity of someone who has been handed something fragile he didn't expect. The nurse was carrying something. A small box, cedar wood, tied with a simple cotton ribbon. She set it on the tray beside my bed. "I was asked to hold on to this," she said, "and to give it to you if you were alone when you delivered." I stared at it. "Who asked you?" "Your friend. She dropped it off at the nurse's station when you were admitted. She said you'd know what to do with it." My husband looked over from across the room. "What is that?" "I don't know yet," I said. I waited until he took our daughter for a diaper change with the nurse's help. Then I untied the ribbon and opened the box. Inside, folded in thirds, was a letter. Underneath it was a key on a small ring, a house key, I realized, to Lynette's place. And under that, a gift card to a place I like, a grocery store near her neighborhood, $100 on it. The letter was in Lynette's handwriting, which is large and slanted and very much like her. "I didn't know for certain he wouldn't be there," she wrote. "But I know you, and I know him, and I wanted you to have this either way. The key is to my house. The room is already made up. The offer is open for as long as you need it. A night, a month, however long. You don't have to decide anything tonight. You just have to know the door is unlocked. You did it. You did the whole thing. I watched you, and I want you to know you were not alone. You were never alone. You had me and you had her, and that was enough. That will always be enough. I love you. Call me when you're ready." I folded the letter and put it back in the box and closed the lid. My husband came back into the room. He was trying, in his way, making conversation with the night nurse, asking questions about the discharge paperwork, holding our daughter with more confidence than he'd had 20 minutes ago. He glanced at the box but didn't ask again. I watched him and I felt, not anger, not yet, something quieter than anger, something that had been sitting in me for a long time, underneath all the covering and the justifying and the midnight lists of reasons why things were fine. I thought about the 7 years, about every appointment I'd sat through alone, about his mother's balloon emoji, about his sister and the word identity, about the game, about its running long. I thought about my daughter's face when they placed her on my chest, how completely certain she was in that first moment that she was exactly where she needed to be. I wanted her to always feel that way. I wanted to make a world for her where she would always feel that way. And I knew, in the same way you know certain things, not with your mind but somewhere lower and more reliable, that I could not give her that world and also keep pretending that this one was fine. We went home 3 days later. My husband had cleaned the house, which surprised me. He'd set up the bassinet in the bedroom, stocked the kitchen, left a vase of real flowers on the counter. Not gas station flowers, actual flowers, sunflowers and white daisies. I could see the effort in it. I could see the guilt. His mother came by that first week. She brought a casserole and held the baby and told me I looked tired in a voice that meant it as an observation rather than a kindness. His sister came the day after and took approximately 400 photos of my daughter and posted 3 of them on her Instagram without asking. I did not say anything. I was saving my energy. Lynette came on the 4th day. She sat on the couch and held the baby while I actually ate a meal for the first time since coming home, and she didn't ask me anything. She just sat there, a steady, familiar presence, and let me breathe. When my husband went to take the dog out, I looked at her and said, "I've been thinking." "I know," she said. "I haven't decided anything." "I know that too. I need to be honest with myself about what I'm deciding if I stay. Like, I need to be really clear that it's a choice I'm making, not just a thing that's happening to me. She nodded. She didn't tell me what to do. She has never told me what to do. She's only ever made sure I knew I had options. I made an appointment with a therapist 6 weeks postpartum. My OB referred me. I'd flagged some things at my follow-up, been honest in a way I hadn't been in a long time. The therapist's office was on the second floor of a building downtown, and it smelled like cedar and lavender and something else I couldn't name. And I sat in a chair across from her and told her about the night my daughter was born, and I cried for the first time since the hospital. Really cried. Not the polite, composed crying of someone who is managing themselves. The kind that surprises you. She didn't try to fix it. She just said, "Tell me about the box." So I told her about the box. She was quiet for a moment after. Then she said, "It sounds like your friend knew something you weren't ready to know yet." "She usually does," I said. "What do you think she knew?" I looked at the window. Outside the street was ordinary, people walking, a delivery truck, a dog on a leash. That I was going to need a door, I said, and that if there wasn't one already, she was going to build me one. That was 8 months ago. My daughter is sitting up on her own now, which she is extremely proud of. She has her grandmother's eyes, my grandmother's eyes, and the most extraordinary seriousness of expression for someone who has been alive less than a year. My husband and I are in couples therapy. I will not pretend that I have decided to stay forever or to leave tomorrow. What I can tell you is that I made a choice, a real one, with my eyes open, and that I go back to that choice every morning and ask myself if it's still the right one, and on most days the answer is, for now, yes. Not because things are perfect, they're not. Because I am finally at 34 learning the difference between commitment and disappearing. His mother sends cards now, real ones, in the mail, with actual sentences in them. His sister came to my daughter's 7-month milestone appointment and stood in the hallway and didn't say anything critical even once. I don't know if they changed or if something shifted in the way I carry myself, but the dynamic is different, and I'll take different. Lynette had dinner at our house last week. She held the baby through dessert, and my husband did the dishes without being asked, which made Lynette raise an eyebrow at me across the table in a way that meant several things at once. The cedar box is on my nightstand. The letter is still inside it. I open it sometimes, not because I've forgotten what it says, but because I want to remember what it felt like to read it for the first time. That specific quality of being seen, of having someone know you well enough to prepare for the worst of you, and love you through it anyway. I don't keep a list anymore. The midnight list of reasons why things are fine. I don't need it. What I have instead is harder to explain, something more like clarity, which is not the same as certainty, but which holds its shape in the dark. My daughter woke up at 5 this morning. I got to her before she could really cry, before she even worked herself up to it. And I picked her up in the grey pre-dawn light and stood at the window with her and looked out at the street. She was quiet immediately. She pressed her face against my shoulder and breathed. I thought about what Lynette wrote. You had me and you had her, and that was enough. I held my daughter tighter, and for the first time in a long time, I believed it.